Michelle Obama is a podcaster now. Tim Ferriss has a very popular podcast. Oprah has several podcasts. Actually, what she records is also published on podcasts. So podcasting is a thing. And actually today I want to talk to you about how to use podcasting as a client generator for your online coaching business. Hi, High Achiever. I'm Fabienne Raphaël, business coach, and I'm here to help you monetize your knowledge so you can fire your boss. And today I wanted to let you know about how podcasting could be a great marketing weapon, client generator, and actually really helping you into growing your coaching business. So let me start by telling you a bit about my story on podcasting. So let's go back like a few years. I knew I wanted to do something online, but it wasn't really clear to me what I wanted to do. And at the time, I was investing my resources into learning how to write better. And my blogging coach, actually, on a call, told me, why don't you start a podcast? It goes with your personality, and I'm sure you would do something great. I was like, what's podcasting? He's like, well, look it up, find some tutorial, and let's get started with this. So I did, and actually I fell in love with the podcasting thing. Let's say that I had also a background into media school with radio hosting and television hosting. And I always loved the feel of, being behind the mic, talking to people, interviewing people, or sharing stuff behind the mic. So I figured, let me start with my podcast, and actually it was one of the best ideas I've ever had. Of course, I invested some resources into getting a coach to help me with the podcasting and also like framing my show and knowing how to reach out to connect with a ton of people, because on my podcast, Marketing to Crush Your Competitors, I was able to reach 300 episodes. And among these 300 episodes, of course, many of them I was sharing value with my own content, but the majority of them I was interviewing influencers from all around the world and who are thought leaders and experts into their field all over the web. So it was great, and actually I wanted to express to you what are the advantages of starting a podcast. In my end, when I think about it a few years after everything has been done, I would say that maybe starting that podcast at that time, it was a great idea, but at a certain point I figured like, what if I had done something else before? And about that something else before, I will tell you in my next video, okay? But seriously, starting a podcast, what it helped me with is actually shape the person I became, right? Break the ice because it's extremely scary. And when you do that first episode, I remember I was so shy and so scared about what people would think. And I actually had a script of everything that I said. So literally, if you go back to my episode 1 of that podcast, you understand that I'm reading a script. And I talk like this, and I'm so not myself, and I don't have a lot of energy because I'm so freaking scared. But hey, we all have to start somewhere. So let's say that positively, it helped me go towards like something that I was really not comfortable doing to eventually become comfortable doing it. Second thing, you learn a lot, especially when you interview people and when you select the people you want to interview. See, there are people that I interviewed on my podcast that if you want to work with them personally, like you have to invest over 5 or even 6 figures to actually have private coaching with them. But them coming on the show, yeah, they don't charge anything. So you can ask all the questions that you need in order to learn stuff. So I remember that I was very eager to interview a ton of influencers because it really helped me gain more knowledge for my own business, but also for my own mindset. And it helped me grow as a person too. So I could ask questions, from what people that I knew had questions, but also my own questions in order to learn more and be more, let's say, of an expert when I would eventually switch and help others with their online business. Also, it helps you create relationships. And I think that's the greatest advantage of having a podcast, because you have an intimate feel like conversation with one person that is sharing value with your audience. But remember that you have the pre-show and the post-show. So you always have a few minutes prior to the show and after the show to ask for, more personal things or to connect and bond with that person in a certain way. So some people that I've met on my podcast, I still have like connections with them, and once in a while we write to each other or we follow each other on social media, or I follow their work, they follow mine, and this is great for referrals as clients, for speaking engagements, for example, and also for being on other podcasts, right? Because having a podcast helps position you as an expert. And you might say, well, how can it help you position you as an expert if you're the one asking the questions? Well, good question, right? Remember that you learn from everyone. And eventually, like when you gain that experience of interviewing more and more people and you become more targeted on who you want to reach and what you want to do and how you want that to complete your own content, then when you interview all these people, eventually what happens is that you become part of their group, right? They consider you as part of their club, if I can call it like that. So these influencers that come on your show, or those other entrepreneurs that come on your show, what happens is that, well, they might tell you at the end, hey, I know that person. She or he could be a great guest on your show, or I've been on that podcast, and considering the conversation that we had, you would be a great guest to go there. So basically, it's amazing for referrals, and it's amazing for expanding your reach and building more and more relationships. So one of the best things about it also is that you become comfortable sharing your own content. So if you eventually want to do more speaking on other podcasts or on live events or on virtual events like summits, well, you gotta be comfortable sharing your stuff. You gotta be comfortable expressing what you want to teach to your audience and giving value to your audience. And the best way to do that is through interviews and through speaking a lot about it and through answering a ton of questions in different angles about this expertise that you have. What you have to think about is that, someone can ask you, well, what's your story? Or someone can ask you, what happened in your childhood that you think shaped the person you became? Or someone else can ask you, who influenced you the most through your journey to become an entrepreneur? See, so these three questions, they all ask about your journey, but differently. So you have to look for the answers, of course, in your own story, but then people get to know you in different ways. And that's the most important thing. Remember that eventually what you're doing when you are having a podcast is that you're building your authority, your credibility, and you want people to trust you. And when you're a podcaster and you invite people, or you're a podcaster and you share your own thing, your own value and your own teachings on your show, well, it gives you credibility, authority, and trust among your audience. What's also great for you to bring in clients to your business through your podcast is to have what they call a call to action at the end of your show, or it could be at the beginning or right in the middle. So what you want to do is bring people that are listening to your show to your website, to this special video that you made, to your YouTube channel, to somewhere else that will lead them to consume more of your content and get to know you even more. Because if they do like you, if they do trust you, and if they do think that you might be a person that they want to hire eventually, well, they will want to know the more that they can about you. If you send them, let's say, to a landing page that we call, and on that landing page, there's an exchange of their email address, they can get a freebie, like a template or a blueprint out of something for their coaching business, like the 3 simple steps to help them build their coaching business, for example. Of course, they will be interested of getting it. And then when they go get it, well, they're on your email list. When you send emails eventually, well, you can keep in touch with them and they can get to consume more and more of your content, and not necessarily only the podcast content, but also the emails, also if there are videos that you're doing, or if there are anything else that you want to share with them. So it gets to actually get that relationship that you have with your audience way better. And when they are ready to hire someone to help them out, especially if they know what you're about and they know what your specialty is, guess who they're going to hire? You. I have to warn you though that podcasting is not for everyone, okay? So some people are really scared about being behind the mic. You have to understand that if you're not ready to go through that growth, that you have to embrace the fact that you'll suck at first. If you're not ready to do that, then maybe it's not for you. It's also a ton of work to organize a podcast interview, to prepare your questions, to be in that feel, to reach out to the guests. And after that, if you don't have the resources to hire people to edit your show and help you out with your jingle and help you out with, segmenting it and putting all the pieces together, then you will have to do all of that yourself. And I know that a ton of beginners, when they begin their podcast, they don't necessarily have a ton of resources and they will need to do it all themselves. There's that learning curve also that you'll have to do. So either hire a team or taking a lot of time to develop these skills yourself. But overall, I have to say that this podcast that I started, it was actually the beginning for me of putting myself out there online and discovering what I was about, owning my true values and expressing my personality and really enjoying it, being on the show with a ton of guests, but also sharing my value with my audience, okay? So I give you an exercise here. Just go on my podcast. It's called Marketing to Crush Your Competitors. So it's at marketingtocrushyourcompetitorspodcast.com. Listen to episode 1. Listen to episode maybe 50. And then 100, 150, and episode 300, and see the big difference. You could definitely see my evolution from when I started out to when I recorded my last podcast episode 300. So yeah, food for thought. Are you thinking about starting a podcast? Maybe it's in your head. And if you do, you have to compare okay, what are the reasons why I would want to start it and what are the cons, why I shouldn't start it right now. And in my next video, what I will share with you is how to use podcasting as a client generator as I did now. But now I told you about you being the host of your podcast. My next video is going to be about you being a guest on other people's podcasts. All right? See you in the next video.